Let's talk about 4.5, supply shifters. So last week we did demand shifters, which were kind of difficult, but at the same time, they're okay. They're okay. You guys did good on them. Some of you had questions. I love questions because it lets me know that you're actually trying and you care. So keep asking questions. So right now, I'm going to move my screen over so I can see. Perfect. So same thing goes for supply shifters. So remember, we're going to be talking about supply. So we're going to be talking about businesses and producers. Okay, businesses and producers. We're talking about as if you were like the owner of a business or the owner of a company. That is the cap we're wearing today, okay? So we're going to be talking about an increase in supply and an increase in demand. Now remember, quantity supplied at every price. So this doesn't change. The line never shifts for price. Never shifts for price. The only other things that change it are the other aspects we'll be talking about later in this lesson. Price never changes when we're talking about a shift in the supply curve. Okay? So to show a decrease in supply, I'm sorry, I'm going to use my red marker. It's going to be way more helpful. We're going to move this way. So we're going to move to the left. And what I mean by the price never changes, so if we had a dot right here to start with at our equilibrium, that spot at price is never going to change no matter which way we shift the line. The price is always going to stay the same. The quantity is the only thing that's going to be changing. Okay? So when supply is moved over to the left, obviously supply decreases. We move here. It's a decrease, okay? All right. So then if we want to show an increase in supply, we go ahead and move it to the right. And the dot would go right here. And quantity would increase. That's a really bad arrow. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Increase. Okay? This is what we're talking about when we're talking about supply shifters. Okay? When the line moves to the right, it is an increase. And when the supply line moves to the left, it is a decrease in supply. Okay? Okay. So for demand shifters, we had the reasons for why there is a change in demand. We also have reasons for why there is a change in supply. Demand is known as tires, and supply is known as tigers. So go ahead, take out your notebooks. You're gonna need to write this down, 100%. You need to have this in your notebook because you're doing the exact same activity for supply like you did for demand with the whole Google form and worksheet where you put the graphic and so on and so forth, okay? So you definitely are gonna need to write this down. We're going with tigers today, okay? So tigers, T-I-G-E-R-S, tigers, correct? Correct. Sometimes I tell you, my spelling brain is not on. So we are gonna go through these one by one, and I will explain to you exactly what happens to graphs when each of them is put in place. So the first one we're gonna talk about is technology. Now here's the important thing with technology. We're always talking about advancements in technology. There is no time that technology is ever going to shift the supply line to the left to decrease. Never will it ever. The supply line can only be moved to the right for an increase with technology. So it only shows an increase. Okay? That's it. Only shows an increase. Will not show a decrease. We don't decrease technology. When new technology comes out, we use it as a business. If a new computer system comes out, if machines come out instead of people, so on and so forth. That's a change in technology that helps improve. There's never going to be a time where we're going to be like, oh, we don't want to use machines anymore. Let's just, go back to the good old days where hired people and took longer and so on and so forth. That's never how it's going to be. Okay. The next one, I, is international events / disasters. Okay, so international events / disasters. So if something were to happen that would cause, something awful to happen. And the other thing with this is it usually also only decreases the supply. There isn't really an international event / disaster that's going to help increase supply. It's always going to decrease the supply. So this one's only ever going to decrease, okay? I can't really write an arrow there, so we're gonna write an arrow over here. So this one's up, this one is down, okay? That can only ever move supply down, only ever move supply up, okay? Okay. A disaster such as like war, a revolution, natural disasters, hurricanes, typhoons, tsunamis, earthquakes, so on and so forth. The next one, G, is government intervention. So government intervention. So government intervention can go both ways. So the first way it can go in decreasing is when we're talking about taxes, fees, and regulations that are put on our products. If we, as the suppliers, are taxed on our products, or there's some kind of a fee we have to pay, we're going to charge more for those items because we had to pay more to get them and to obtain them. So supply would then decrease because we're going to have less because we have to pay more per item. On the other hand, there are these things called subsidies, which are basically grants for people who produce. So if I'm a farmer and it's going to be a tough year and I need help with getting stuff and I need help with people buying my product, the government will subsidize me, it'll give me some money to help me out, which would shift the supply to increase. Since we have more money now as farmers, we can grow more products and we can sell more products. It's better for the economy. That will increase the supply. So taxes, if you want to write this in your notebook, I recommend it. Taxes, fees, and then what was the other word? Regulations. Regulations cause supply to decrease, which the graph will look like this. Remember, when you're drawing your graph, you're always putting P over here and Q over here. And then the supply line goes towards the sky. And then with taxes and fees, decrease in supply is going to move to the left. We're going to call this S1. The price doesn't change, again, but the quantity does. And there's a decrease in supply. Okay? So that's what your graph would look like if we were talking about a decrease in supply, taxes, fees, and regulations. Remember, we're talking about suppliers here. So it affects our products and what we're selling. Now, if we were talking about subsidies, subsidy, I don't want to spell it wrong, subsidy, that helps. That is the government basically subsidizing your business. It's helping give you money in these tough times. And in these tough times right now, during COVID-19, where a bunch of businesses had to shut down, they're subsidizing a lot of stuff because they're not making money elsewhere, and the government wants to keep the economy as high as possible in this unknown time. So a subsidy helps supply, it helps increase the supply. Again, price, quantity, supply line. To show an increase in supply because of subsidies, it would move to the right. And okay, let's say the equilibrium line's right here. The dot will go right here. This shows an increase in quantity. Increase. So if you want to write that down, I highly recommend writing that down as well, because that is extremely helpful. So this is all for the G. I don't know if you want to note that somehow, or if you want to, how you want to do it on your notes. You can figure it out. Okay, the next letter we are going to look at is E, which this is similar to the one for demand, but for supply, expectations of future price changes and how that affects producers. So, expectations for future price changes. The expectations for future price changes. This can go both ways again, increase, decrease. So if producers expect the price of a good to rise in the future, they're going to immediately supply less of it. So it's the opposite of demand, okay? This is the opposite. Suppliers, remember, suppliers want to sell more at higher prices. So if producers expect the price of a good to go up next week, they're not going to supply as many this week because they want to have more to offer at the higher price. Now, if prices are expected to fall, producers are going to increase supply for this week and decrease it for next because of the price fall. So let me show you what this looks like on a graph. So P, Q, S. If prices are expected to rise, what's going to happen right now to supply? Supply is going to decrease because remember, we're the suppliers. We want to make as much money as humanly possible. So we are actually going to decrease our supply this week so that we can help make more money next week when the price is expected to rise. So if price is expected to rise, suppliers are going to supply less. It's going to decrease. Okay. All right. Prices expected to fall or slash decrease. Okay. Prices are expected to go down next week. So what's going to happen to supply this week? Supply this week is going to increase because as the suppliers, we want to offer more at a higher price. So if prices are expected to fall, we're going to offer more now so we can make more money. We're going to increase. All right, the R in Tigers is resource costs. In order to make anything, we need to buy resources, okay? This is very, very similar to the government interventions. When the cost of a resource, if the cost of a raw good, like a raw material that we use, let's say to make pencils, we need rubber for pencils. If the price of rubber were to increase, what would happen to the supply of pencils? The supply would decrease because we're paying more for rubber, we can't buy as much, we're going to make less pencils. Same thing, if the price of rubber was to go way down, suppliers would buy a whole bunch and we would have a ton of pencils. Okay, let's graph this a little bit. Again, with your lovely graph, P, Q, supply. All right. So resource prices increase. Okay. So if the resource prices increase, what's going to happen to supply? It's going to decrease. And remember, the price of the actual item is not changing, just the quantity we're producing is. Okay? So that shows a decrease in the amount of items we're able to make with the resource. Again, the pencil example. If rubber was to increase, the price of rubber was to increase, we wouldn't be able to make as many pencils, and the supply would decrease, shift to the left, because we aren't able to make as many. Okay. Resource prices decrease. Okay. So resource prices decrease. P, Q, S. What happens to the amount that we're able to supply? If rubber's prices go way down, what are suppliers going to do? We still have the same amount of money to buy rubber. So what are they going to do? They go buy more rubber and we're going to be able to make more pencils. Amazing. Supply is going to increase. So, increase. Supply is going to increase, everyone. Supply is going to, bam, increase. More pencils, more rubber, more pencils, more writing. So that is what's going to happen with that. And last, but definitely not least, we have the number of sellers in the market. Number of sellers in the market. If there's more sellers, there's more supply. If there's less sellers, there's less supply. And an excellent example of this would be if you lived in a town and you had 2 Starbucks already, then all of a sudden they were going to build a 3rd Starbucks. The supply of Starbucks would increase. You'd have way more opportunity to actually get what you want from Starbucks. Okay? Same goes for if you have a Caribou and a Starbucks and all of a sudden they're opening a Dunkin' Donut. Amazing. And you're Rogers, Minnesota, because that's what's happening right now anyways. But the supply for coffee would increase. Okay? Now, if you had, I don't know, let's say, same thing, Caribou, Starbucks, and Dunkin', and all of a sudden Dunkin' Donuts closes and you only are left with Starbucks and Caribou, there is a decrease in supply of coffee because there's less people selling it. Graph time. Number of sellers decreases. Okay, number of sellers decreases. We're losing a business, okay? What's going to happen to that line? Is it going to move to the left or to the right? What's going to happen to supply? Supply is going to decrease. We're going to have less of that item. Oh my gosh, that arrow is so bad. Decrease. The decrease. Supply is going to go down because we have less sellers. I'm tired. I haven't had my coffee yet. Who records a lesson and doesn't have coffee yet? So if I seem less peppy, because I haven't drank my coffee yet. Okay. Don't judge me too hard. And also, I really miss you guys right now, so having a moment. Anyways, number of sellers increases. So now all of a sudden we have more of an item. Again, P, Q, S, dot, what's going to happen? The supply is going to increase because we have more people selling it. Price never changes. Price never changes at the same price. These are all at the same price, okay? So it's going to increase. If the sellers increases, supply is going to increase, okay? On our econ website that we have set up, there's a PowerPoint that goes over all this, which I've been referencing to the left of this screen, if you see me glance over there. And at the very end of that PowerPoint is a variable that influences the sellers. So it's a whole little sheet that shows you, does this influence the supply curve? And if it does, it's on there. Price does not shift the curve. Price simply moves the dot already on the line up and down the line. Price does not shift the curve, okay? All right, so those are all of your Tiger's little cheat sheet here. Like I said, I recommend going to the econ website, looking at that graph or little graphic on the PowerPoint for this unit, which is 4.5, because it shows you that price doesn't affect the shift in the line. Again, you are going to be doing a similar activity to the one you did with demand tomorrow for supply. Okay, please reach out to me if you have any questions. I answer emails regularly, constantly, all the time. I miss you guys very much. I know how difficult this is for you. It's extremely difficult for me as well. And we're going to get through this. Stay safe, stay happy, and stay healthy. Okay, you guys? I'll talk to you later.